All right, so that's getting started. I think my sound might come in and mess me up, so I'm muting myself for a little bit. But hi everyone, thanks for joining. I think more people will trickle in as the evening marches on. But I'm Shanika, current chapter president of the Atlanta chapter, so welcome. And I do see some new names. So for those that are unfamiliar with BDPA, we're a nonprofit, I guess you'd say like networking or membership organization. So for us, we're focused on exposure, I could say, so bridging the gap between those that are not currently in the tech field and those that might be interested in jumping in. So like today we're having a company spotlight with Meta, so opportunities to kind of meet with different companies that you weren't really considering before. And then also just with the help of Matrix, we've been having also various workshops to kind of learn I guess about different I guess advancements that are happening in technology. So I guess one note to kind of also say with BDPA. So we kind of have, I guess maybe three, maybe areas of focus. So we have our STEM program, which is working with uh, kids, typically middle school to high school, but even younger if they're interested. But from our season is wrapping up in August, and I'll talk more about August in a little bit. But from about January, February-ish until about August, when the conference happens, we're working with students and introducing them into well, one part of it is like web development. So they're learning about web development skills. There's data science, mobile app. There is research. So students are learning kind of like what they do in academia, where they're getting a research program, a research a problem, and providing a solution to it through research. And I don't remember if I mentioned data science, but we have a number of different streams that different students can get involved in and get exposure to, I guess, those other facets of technology. Then we have, I guess, the area for working professionals. So, like our monthly series that we're having here this evening. So, I believe the third Wednesday each month, we've been grateful to have a session where we're, as I was saying, various companies will come out or various professionals will come out and just speak on their experiences. And then we're still growing our, I guess, college area where we're kind of reaching out to local universities down here and also trying to get them involved. I guess the earlier you kind of learn about, I guess, opportunities, the more you can explore. So as I was kind of saying earlier with August, so the kind of culmination of our STEM program is the conference that we have this year. It's from August 18th to 20th. I can drop a link into the chat for the conference. So an invite for those that aren't currently registered, go ahead and register. It will be here in Atlanta, so there will be a physical presence to it. So if you did want to come downtown Atlanta, there's that part of it. There will also be a virtual aspect of it. So I'll drop the link in the chat in a little bit. But yeah. So um, one thing also before kind of kicking it off to JV is also thanking our sponsors. So State Farm has been a huge sponsor, helping us with having the Zoom that we've been able to keep our virtual sessions happening, I guess, these last 2+ years now. And then Matrix has helped us a lot with having content every month for the last couple of years. So with that, I'll kick it over to John.
Sounds great. Thanks, Shanika. So I was so excited today about this evening. I went into the pantry. I'm just like, I have a bad, Damien knows this. I got like a bad sweet tooth. So I go into the pantry digging for something. Of course, I find M&Ms, and I start chowing down on these M&Ms and thinking, oh, these are good, but it's so darn hot. They are melting in my hands. I'm like, my goodness. And I'm like, M&M. No, it's about meta and machine learning, JV. Stop eating the candy and start thinking about meta and machine learning for tonight. So anyways, I'm so thankful for Damien Phillips and James Baker from Meta joining us tonight. Should be a great session. What a logo for us to have on a monthly meeting, to have Meta with us is spectacular. So we've had a lot of great companies through the year this year. MailChimp in Atlanta, CRH, big building supply company, and then of course Home Depot was last month, and now Meta. So terrific companies. It's been awesome to hear about the internal culture, the why behind people join a company like Meta, and the why behind why they stay. So we'll hear some of those comments and thoughts and feelings from Damian and James tonight. But also really looking forward to hearing from James. His technical background is incredible. So about 18 years at Microsoft, about 4 years at Amazon, the last 3 years at Meta. I mean, so really going to be great to hear James talk about his background, some of the projects that he'll be able to share with us tonight. So he gave me, I asked for a little bio from James, and I'm like, I don't know where to begin with this, like, so fantastic. I'm like, I think I'm just I'm gonna save that for you, James, maybe to talk a little bit about what you want to talk about. I thought I'd just mention that your past companies, but Damian and I are friends from way back. We worked together back at Matrix, had a lot of fun together, did a lot of good stuff together too. So one of my favorite recruiters, one of my favorite guys in the A-Town. So again, thankful for you to join us, and also for pulling in James. So good. See, you haven't lost your touch, man. You were able to, I mean, that's some good recruiting for tonight. So awesome. So anyways, well, I'm going to flip it to you guys. I'm going to stop talking, and you guys take it from here.
All right. So I was thinking when you were talking about the M&Ms, JB, that you were going to say Matrix and Meta, but you kind of pivoted. But Matrix and Meta.
Learning, I don't brag too much about what we machine learning, baby.
Well, by way of introduction for those, that don't know me, which probably everybody on the call, like JB said, I actually am a former employee of Matrix. I was a recruiter there. While I was at Matrix, I was the recruiter point of contact for Matrix and BDPA. So every month when you guys would host the meetings, you would come to the office, and I would be the guy who would kind of talk. So for you old head, you OG BDPA folks, Carter Hill was the president at that time. So at the time, JB was an account executive. Now he's the man, the regional. He is the man, and we've just kept in contact. And that just, that just kind of shows what type of person that JB is. That somebody that had worked with him 10, 12 years ago still keeps in contact, and is still willing to come and spend their time, on behalf of JB. So that just kind of shows what kind of person he is. For myself, I've been a recruiter here in Atlanta for probably 20 years. I've done everything from recruitment process outsourcing to agency recruiting, obviously with Matrix, corporate recruiting. I was at Accenture for about 8 years. And then I was actually laid off because of COVID and ended up working at Meta, where I've been for the last 10 months or so. Started in October. So coming up on close to a year. So I was just going to jump right in and kind of talk about some of those things that JB was just mentioning.
You're an Emory Eagle, aren't you?
Yes, Emory grad, class of '98. So I'm originally from the Bay Area, but I've been in Atlanta since 1990. So old Atlanta. Even though I'm not a Grady baby, but I've been in Atlanta for a super long time. Went to high school and college here, and just never left. How do I share screen? Maybe this.
See it on the bottom center, green button.
I got it. So can you guys see?
Got it.
See a word.
Facebook is now Meta. Yeah, I didn't put together anything super super fantastic. Just really kind of some notes. And I mean, I really want this to be more of a conversation versus me and James just sitting there, talking to you guys. So for those that don't know, Meta, formerly known as Facebook, Meta owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Oculus, etc. A lot of people ask, why did Facebook change the name to Meta? And the easiest way that I can put it is Facebook is just one of the apps and products that Meta owns and operates. So think about calling McDonald's Big Macs, right? They sell quarter pounders and all different kind of things. So it really made sense for the name change. Also, it focuses, that name, I think in Mark Zuckerberg's eyes, puts an emphasis on building the metaverse, which Facebook is not going to do alone, but, just kind of putting the emphasis on building out the metaverse. So speaking of JB's last point about why do people work at Meta, it's pretty simple. Engineering candidates join Meta and they stay for a few reasons. Number one is because the bar at Meta is very, very high, from recruiters all the way up. So the folks that you're working with, the peers that you're working with, steel sharpens steel. For a long time, pre-COVID, Meta, if you wanted to work for Meta, or at the time Facebook, if you wanted to work for Meta, you had to live or relocate to one of the cities that they had an office in. Well, with COVID, I think that a lot of companies realized that people can be just as productive working from home as they can sitting in a cube in the office or whatever. So they realized that with the growth that we're having, we were missing out on a lot of talent just because they weren't in the Bay Area or Austin or Chicago. Myself, for example, I have several peers of mine who live in Atlanta who are recruiters who took jobs at Facebook at the time and had to move to the Bay Area. Well, I have 4 children here in Atlanta. I couldn't move, but now I can work remotely. So Meta actually has a goal to get to a 50% remote workforce in the next 5 years. That way, we're not missing out on any talent anywhere. Just yesterday, I was talking to a machine learning engineer that lived in Lincoln, Nebraska. 2 years ago, that guy would have never even got a call. So number one reason why people come to Meta and stay at Meta is because the quality of your coworkers and your peers, they are the best of the best. They're the cream of the crop, and steel sharpens steel. Innovation and problem solving, Meta is literally working on societal issues, things that affect all of us every single day. Bullying, hate speech, disinformation. These are projects that Meta is continuously focused on and trying to come up with solutions for, and that affect all of us, whether you're a user of one of our products or not. And kind of speaking to that, working here at Meta, there are only a few companies that have the scale that we have. Over 3.5 billion people around the world use Meta technologies every month. I think WhatsApp is somewhere like 100 million a day people using WhatsApp. Over 200 million businesses that use our platforms every month to connect with their customers, especially, and a lot of those are small businesses. So think about, those mom and pop stores, those mom and pop shops that are able to use Facebook and Instagram to not only advertise their products and services, but to reach, folks that are not only in their city, but all over the world. And then, like I said, Meta is focused, and especially with the metaverse, on building technologies that have the potential to change how people connect, play, and work. Growth and learning is another strong thing. I think for me as a recruiter, I always ask, candidates that I talk to, no matter what position I'm talking to them about, why are you looking at another opportunity? And almost, I would say 95% of the time, one of their answers is, I want to continue to learn. I want to continue to grow my personal skills, my professional skills, and then also obviously, advance my career. Well, with Meta, we're doing groundbreaking things where, if you're in IT, you don't want to still be working on COBOL, Macy's. You want to be working on the newest, the latest and greatest, the bleeding edge technologies, because that's what's going to keep you as an IT professional marketable. So the opportunity to learn and grow and use cutting edge technologies here at Meta is just absolutely incredible. And speaking of absolutely incredible, are there compensation and benefits? Meta being the brand that Meta has attracts top-notch talent. And when you're talking about top-notch talent, we're typically looking at, recruiting folks or individuals from the Netflixes, the Airbnbs, the Microsofts, the Googles. So those folks are already getting top compensation for their field and their expertise. So Meta does a significant amount of compensation comparison within their peers to make sure that that they are being extremely competitive with their compensation. Every single person that takes a full-time offer with Meta, including myself, even as a lowly recruiter, gets ownership in the company by stock. That's never happened to me before as a recruiter. I've been a recruiter for 20 years and I'd never gotten stock in an organization. But also the benefits and the perks are just absolutely fantastic. Just to give you an example, we have an annual wellness benefit for $3,000 where if I want to get a personal trainer, which I probably need to take advantage of that one, Meta will reimburse me for it. Even when I take my dogs to the groomers and dogs, I'm going on a trip for my birthday, I'm going to need dog boarding. I can get Meta to reimburse me for my dog boarding. They sent me $2,000 to set up my home office, even though I've been working from home from 2012. I took that money gracefully. So the benefits, the perks are just absolutely fantastic. The benefits, for me, I have a family of 6. I have, myself, my wife, and my 4 children. I think I pay something like $130 a month for all 6 of us. $10 co-pays. It is lovely. So those are just some of the main reasons why folks come to Meta and then obviously stay at Meta. So I'll pause right there and for questions, because like I said, I did want this to be kind of more interactive as opposed to me just kind of talking your head off. So any questions about any of those things, any of those reasons there's like a gnat flying around here that just will not leave me alone. So I'm sorry if you just keep seeing me do this. I am not on any type of drugs or anything. It's just this thing will not leave me alone. Any questions? Now y'all see why John has kept in contact with me for the last 10 years, because I'm a hoot. But any questions about anything that I just talked about?
I have a question. What skill set would I need to be not necessarily a machine learning engineer, but let's say a deep learning engineer outside of the tools for deep learning? How much emphasis does Meta put on, say, data structures and algorithms? Because that's kind of like the sort of the last thing I'm working on, strengthening my skills in data structures and algorithms, because I know that's a big part of the interview process for many companies.
Yeah. So deep learning and machine learning, I think, are really go hand in hand. The machine learning engineers that I'm personally recruiting for at this today are actually building algorithms. They are researching, building the models and algorithms, putting them into production and then maintaining them. So if you have a deep learning background and an algorithm, building algorithms in your background, that's exactly, the background that we're looking for. But I will yield to James, who's going to talk a little bit more about kind of like the career path and how to get into Meta. But if you're building algorithms right now, Hodges, that's exactly what we're looking for right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess if your question is specific, like to the interview process or to the daily work process, because I think there are 2 different things. Like the interview process obviously has like a rigid way where you do need to show like core competencies within like data structures, algorithms. For data scientists, data engineers, I think there's a lot more emphasis on data analyzation as compared to coding. I was a dev manager at Amazon for years. I'm not doing that here, but we put a lot of emphasis on different algorithms, coding, not styles, but like different coding methods and how the way you think. But for data scientists and data engineers, I think there's more of an emphasis on ways in which you manage data. Not specifically like to databases or anything like that, but in ways that you think about data. How do you think about managing huge data sets? Like we have billions and billions and billions of rows and tables spread across multiple things that aren't necessarily databases, they're graphs. So like how you deal with that, how you deal with performance, how you deal with even trying to get data back is pretty important. Whereas like in a day-to-day algorithmically, a lot of the things that you do are built into the process already. Unless you're working on, there's a lot of different areas in Meta. There's research areas where specifically they're researching like new coding language, like creating a new language or creating a new operating system or creating a new form of a cluster, and or even creating new AI interfaces. And there you can probably get into more algorithmic type of things. But in a regular DS, I don't see it as much with the DSs that I work with. And then that's different from ML engineers. So I think we're talking about like data scientists, but ML engineers, they will have a little more of algorithmic type of duties. But again, a lot of that is looking at different algorithms that may already exist and seeing which ones are the best to use for different situations, unless you're in research, in which you're creating brand new ones that may be used anywhere inside the company, outside, or wherever.
Yeah, our data science team and our machine learning team, there's a lot of overlap. You know, I feel like, I personally feel that machine learning is going to be the foundation for high performance computing, period, moving forward. But right now, you know, some companies call a data scientist what we call a machine learning engineer, and vice versa, just because the field, I think, itself is still kind of new, you know, over the last couple. Yeah, so there's a lot of overlap. So like, you know, James was saying, you know, on the data science side, there's not a whole lot of coding, but our machine learning engineers, they're coding all day. One of the good things about, you know, about Meta is that it's not like coding specific. I'm sorry, language specific. So like I'll talk to somebody who their primary language might be Python. I'll talk to somebody who their primary language might be C++. So it just kind of depends. But if you're SQL or R or MATLAB, that's gonna, you know, like James was saying, be more on the data analytics side, which is gonna fall more on our data science side of the house. So did that answer your question, kind of, sort of?
Yeah, maybe I can give you a little background on myself. So I've spent the past few years studying theory first, like, you know, just doing all the math, the linear algebra, the probabilities and theory in multivariate calculus. And then I started on machine learning, and then I started working with computer vision. That's, you know, the deep learning. And then recently I started working on natural language processing. So yeah. So the data
me and you
structures.
need to have an offline conversation, a little bit more detail. I.e. a pre-screen to set up an interview. So because CB, NLP, those are all folks that I'm talking to literally every single day for my roles. So so me and you will connect, Hodges. Anybody else have any other questions about just kind of like why people come to Meta and why they stay? All right. So, you know, one of the things obviously that's important, you know, to us and to this group is diversity. And, you know, a lot of teams a lot of companies talk about diversity. I think that it's a buzzword, you know, nowadays. I don't know where my freaking document went, but not a lot of companies put their money where their mouth is, if you will. And Meta actually is absolutely focused on diversity, not only amongst, you know, gender diversity, i.e., you know, so diversity for any company is looking at underrepresented communities for that particular field. So so for a diverse candidate at Meta would be a female, African American, Latino American, well, African American, Latino American, a person with disabilities, veterans also are considered as diverse as well. So all of the kind of also Native Americans as well. All of these communities that are underrepresented in IT. So not necessarily Asian Americans, because there are a large number of Asian Americans already in IT. So Meta has adopted what's called a diverse slate approach, which basically what that means is that for as a recruiter, say James is my hiring manager and he has an opening on his role for his team. Before James will start doing any interviews, we will make sure that we have what's called a diverse slate, which means that if I present 5 candidates to James, at least 2 of those candidates would have to be diverse. Almost like the Rooney Rule in football, where if a head coach is being considered, they have to interview a qualified African American coach. It's kind of the same thing here. We're not putting candidates in front of our hiring managers just to tick a box that they were gender diverse or African American or Latino. These are qualified candidates, but by waiting to make sure that we have identified some type of diverse candidate to interview with that hiring manager, now we have the opportunity to actually get more hires. And this has worked out extremely well for Meta. A lot of companies have adopted this program, but it's working out extremely well for Meta. I think that just in the last 2 years, we've seen our gender diverse numbers go up to like 8%. And then also just on the recruiting side for Meta, we actually have dedicated time every single week where we are literally only supposed to recruit for diverse candidates. So, as a recruiter, I'm looking to identify candidates all week long. And of course, if on a Monday, I find Shanika, I'm going to reach out to her. But on Tuesdays from 4:30 to 6, I'm doing nothing but focused on sourcing for diverse candidates. So, and I also have, as part of my metrics for my annual, for my yearly bonus, there's a diversity component to that. So they're literally making sure that the recruiters are like, our numbers, our pay is tied to us going out and seeking diverse candidates. Now, obviously for me, that's as an African American in HR, it's second nature. That's why I participate in things like this, and why I love about being a recruiter is that I get to help people advance their careers and advance their jobs. So it's second nature for me. But to see all of my peers that may not be minorities focused on banging out the phones to contact diverse candidates is just again, to me, one of the things that separates Meta from some of the other large companies. So with that, I've talked a little bit about why folks come, why folks stay. Oh, last thing I did want to talk about was our ERG group. So another way that Meta just a lot of companies are working remote right now, and sometimes when you're working remotely, it's hard to kind of get that really feel that culture and to feel connected. So Meta has a number of different ERG groups, employee resource groups, one for persons with disabilities. We have a pride group, and then we also have a group called Black at Meta. And then every city has their own little chapters. So we have a Black at Atlanta group. So I'm actually the chairperson of the culture committee for the Black at Atlanta group here in Atlanta. So I help out with coming up with different events. So we'll get together. Like last month, we got together at Painted Duck, and it's free food and drinks on the company, but it's this great networking opportunity. It's like I said, for me, I've only been at Meta since October, so it's great for me to even meet and network with recruiters who have been here for 3, 4, or 5 years, just to how to navigate, this company as a new person to the company, advice, tips, tricks, things. I've learned a tremendous amount just from going to those events. So that's another thing that Meta does, I think, to try to help folks stay connected. And again, there's a number of different ERGs across the organization. So any questions before we can you or James talk about Meta Universe? As a matter of fact, James was just about to do that. So so if no more questions for me, I will punt it over to the star of the show today. James is he's like, not me. I'm like, well, I guess the more technical aspect of the call, because like I said, James will be able to kind of speak some of y'all geek speak a little bit more than me. I'm a recruiter, I'm not technical. So the metaverse and again, maybe some more deep dive into some of the other more cool things that Meta has going on. What is the source for identifying diverse African American candidates, HBCUs? Oh yeah. I have a list, HBCUs, all different kinds of ways. I mean, we use a number of different tools to identify candidates, from even if I'm doing a Latino search, I might put Spanish in, because a lot of people will in the languages section of their resume will put speak Spanish fluently, or a number of the schools is a great one. But there's a number of different ways that we go about, because again, when I'm saying that we're sourcing for diverse talent, we're not only recruiting for Black, for African American candidates, but HBCUs in my search string. And I'm telling you, like, we have a guide that we use that's probably about 30 pages. So it has like literally like a search string in there that literally has every single HBCU that you can think of. Also fraternities and sororities, we'll put those in, diverse, the Divine Nine. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, so I'll look for Kappas, or I'll look for Qs, I'll look for AKAs, just in my search strings, because I know that if they're a member of one of those organizations, also NSB, just all different types of BDPA, just putting these different things into my search string, because 9 times out of 10, if somebody has that list on their resume, they are going to be diverse. Even though there are members of NSB that are not Black, there are members of my fraternity that are not Black. But that's just kind of, like I said, one of the ways that we do that. So,
Is there a typical time? So, for when people should be applying? So, like recent grads,
now,
or even so
now,
now. Okay. What about like internships? Like, so for students that might be like to high school potentially, or in college.
I don't see too many high school internships, but Meta does do a number of internships for folks that are in college. Right now, it seems like once the name changed from Facebook to Meta, and Mark has put this emphasis on building out the metaverse, it's been absolutely bananas over here in terms of our hiring. I think Mark wants to hire like 10,000 engineers in the next year or two, which is an absolutely astronomical number. I think he's looking to hire like 1,100 engineers by the end of the summer, which John can tell you is an astronomical number, especially for a field of technology that the candidate pool isn't that big. And then also where the bar for to get hired is pretty high. So typically for our machine learning engineers, we're looking for at least 5 years of machine learning experience with a bachelor's, at least 3 years of experience with machine learning if you have a PhD or a master's in some related discipline, computer science or something like that. So all right, any other questions for Dame? All right.
I have
Hearing
some
none.
questions. I have some questions for you afterwards, after we get a
right.
chance to talk.
Yeah,
Sure.
me and you, we're gonna have a more in-depth conversation for sure. Just
Okay.
so James, I'll let you introduce yourself and take it away.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much, everyone, for having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity. Usually, I think JV already listed where I worked before, so I won't say it again. But the first thing I'll mention is my first year of college, I went to University of Georgia. My mom's from Rome, Georgia, and my parents live in Atlanta, so I'm very familiar with the Atlanta area. I finished up at Howard University up in DC.
Okay.
And I think, Yeah, I've been out here in Seattle for 25 years. Like I did my first 18 years at Microsoft and Amazon for 3 here at Meta. I've been in all types of roles. I started out as a tester. I used to go to a lab, sit in a lab for good like 10 hours a day, never see sunlight. I used to take one tape out of a drive, put it into another drive, and wait for it to restore and back up, make sure it worked. Then I moved to developer. I did managing different people when I was a tester. And then also I did marketing for a while there, and I did program management for the most of the time I was at Microsoft. Then I moved over and then I moved over to Amazon. There I was a TPM and an engineering manager. For 4 years, I worked on AWS and Alexa Music Search. I did a lot with natural language processing and searching for music. At Microsoft, I worked in Exchange, MSN Messenger, Office, remote desktop, Windows, Azure, different areas. And then here at Meta, I used to work in business integrity, did a lot with elections and integrity of ad placement. And now I'm over in Facebook Reality Labs, and I work in the metaverse. I work on something called Project Horizon, which is something that if you have an Oculus headset, you know about. What I think everybody wanted to talk about like ML stuff. So I just took out some points like from our public talking points about like some of the ML stuff that's done here at Meta. We use ML algorithms and machine learning in a lot of different areas, from ranking of feeds, ads, and search results, as well as in different places such as in text, so that we can keep spam and misleading information from content from coming to your feeds, which is what I used to work on when I was in business integrity. We also use it in image results. We use computer vision algorithms to read images and videos to the blind, and we do translations also. We also do things with speech, automatically captioning videos that play in your news feed, and photos to create visual experiences like 3D interactive 360 degree photos. Let's see. I think one of the things Dane talked about is like why I come to Meta and like some of the differences. And I think that's the question I get every time I'm interviewing someone, like, hey, what's so special about there? And just in my experience of being at different companies, everything here is very bottoms up. Like a lot of places you get told what you're going to do from the top down. Somebody tells you what to do, you do it. Here, everything's bottoms up. So you as your team, where you're working with your DS, your data scientist, data engineering, your TPM, your PM, your researcher, your content creator, your visual designers, you come up with the features that you want to do, you present it out, and you do it. There's not really a big approval process there. You kind of do it. And then after you do it, you post about it, and then it ships. It's not like top down. Very rarely have I ever been asked to do something like from a top down perspective. You kind of work really bottom up for all the features we do. And I think that's a big difference. It really gives you a sense of empowerment, innovation. I know at other companies I've worked at, I've had a lot of different patents and things. Here, it's so bottoms up, it gives you such a vast opportunity to invent things that come to mind based off of your expertise. And I think, to me, that's what makes Meta a lot different from the other places that I've worked or experienced or talked about other people about, and makes a big difference. I don't know much about Meta. What's that?
Just to kind of interject there, one of the things that James is talking about is also, it allows you to kind of follow your own passions. If you have a passion for doing something, there's time carved out for you to kind of chase your own passions aside from your actual work. One of the things that I did want to mention as well is there are currently over 80 different machine learning teams at Meta. And when you get hired at Meta, you go through what's called a boot camp, which basically is, so you get hired, we present you with these 80 different teams. So for you, Hodges, you say, okay, well, I'm really interested in these 5 things. I think it'd be really cool to work on the Instagram team, or I'm really passionate about hate speech. Then you would get a chance to kind of shadow those 5 or 6 groups that you picked, and you are fully engaged as a member of that team for that week. So you're getting tasks, you're attending meetings, you get the opportunity to meet who your manager would be. And then at the end of the boot camp, after that 6 weeks, you get to pick which of those teams that you join. So that is something that, again, I've never encountered. Usually as a recruiter, I have this job, I'm calling you about this job, and this team is hiring, and Meta is not like that. So you really, I think, just to kind of double click on James's point, is that you really get the opportunity to chase your passions and the things that inspire you by working here. So just kind of wanted to just kind of double click on that, James. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's good. I know somebody asked a question about Meta University. My knowledge of it was only because my oldest is in college. She's a senior. She's going to be a senior next year. But when she first started, I was trying to get her into it and get her interested in it. So that's the only way I know a little bit about it. So I would much rather you read what's on the website than go off of my knowledge as a parent. It's not as a person who actually knows anything about it. But I believe that it is a way to get different candidates from diverse backgrounds into Meta, and they're given like a very structured program where they work with different teams to understand more about the process. It's basically like an internship, but it's very, very structured in that internship and very targeted. And I don't know much else about it, except my daughter decided that she's a psychology major now. So although we have a lot of psychology majors here, especially in DS, I run into a lot of psychology majors in data science, that she's teaching this summer instead of being here. So that's all I know about it. Were there any questions though that I could answer for you guys?
Hodges, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I have a question about the soft skills that might be required for a position, say, in machine learning, not necessarily related to machine learning, but something like a AWS or GCP or GitHub or Docker, Kubernetes.
So the interesting thing about here is that when you start, he talked about this boot camp. You go through this boot camp. There's data science boot camp, or they call it data camp, and you start to learn our systems, which are different than anywhere I've worked. I've worked in AWS. I've worked on Azure. We have our own thing. And so there's nothing, there are things you could probably prep for, but it doesn't matter because you're going to learn from like the guys who help create, like we have our own computer languages we use too. So you would learn from those guys too. So I don't think there's anything as far as like a preparation, even for interviews. Like a lot of times interviewers can do any language you want when you're doing coding questions. But like once you get here, you go through these camps and you learn what you need to do the job. So I think publicly we do announce that we have a language we call Hack, which is a derivative of PHP with strong type defs. So you wouldn't necessarily know that. And then there was an old version that was open source that's still different than what we use today. So I think those type of skills, they're decent. They could give you a faster start in data camp, or boot camp, but it's not necessarily to get in the door, or anything like that.
Okay.
From a soft skills perspective, I would say that it's the same as any other company. Good communication skills, good team player skills, collaborative, being able to work in a collaborative environment. Those are the main, especially now that we're, a lot of our workforce is remote, just being able to communicate effectively, I think is probably one of the best soft skills that just, but I don't think that they're any different from any other organization.
Okay.
So I have a question that it'll be like the equivalent of maybe not a slow pitch, but maybe like, in the home run derby where they throw them up and, easy to smack it. So, so why, like again, back to the why, like why do companies like Meta, like why is there so much belief like in machine learning when Damien says, hey, machine learning is going to be it going forward for a pretty long time? Like what are the basic advantages and and like what's to be leveraged so much? I know this is going to kind of get us into like maybe ML 101 a little bit, but maybe a good place just to get back to for the conversation.
Yeah, I think so. Here at Meta, we deal with very, very large data sets, huge data sets. And I think there's a lot of places that or things I've worked on where we made decisions as engineers or as PMs on different items that are specific for a product. When you start to move to ML with AI, you can make those decisions on the fly with the coding to help you make those decisions and change things, whether it's user interface, whether it's things in your news feed, whether it's identifying bad actors on the system to get rid of them, whether it's promoting new features, even advertisements. Whereas previously to this, that was probably a manual thing that covered a large range of people, not really specific to you, which is not necessarily good. And obviously there's always tweaking of those things. And that's where the DS and DEs kind of come in to make sure these things work really well together. But in general, it just allows you to serve just a much larger customer base in a way that's tailored for them, and also expose new features too. And I know like we use a lot of it where I used to work in integrity to be able to identify repetitive actions that may be seen by different types of actors that may not necessarily be good, to make sure that they don't cause harm to other users. Whereas that might have been like a whack-a-mole before. Whereas like you get a bug, you fix the bug, you get a bug, you fix the bug. Whereas with this, you can just have it run and run and run, and it learns and it keeps on going, and it starts to enhance the experience for users a lot quicker and easier for a larger set of users too.
Thank you.
That's my experience, and just my experience at Meta. I've had other experiences at other companies, but I'm just here to talk about the Meta ones now.
Does Facebook have an office in Atlanta?
Yeah, there is an office in Atlanta.
It's over in social circle. It's more of a networking center, but yeah, it's an actual office. They have a pastry chef in there, and you can go in there and get food made. It's kind of crazy. There's the networking center, social circle, and then there's a office by Atlantic Station as well.
Oh, okay.
Fairly new.
Mm-hmm.
Fairly new offices though.
Oh, okay. Well, I actually live down in McDonough, so I don't know if you know where that is. But...
I'm in Fairburn, so I do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just feel like I'm far away from everything. But
I know Chris had a question. He was wondering what type of algorithms do you use? Daily, regression, clustering, classification, all the above. So I think it just depends on what group you work in and what you're going to do. And you're also creating your own algorithms depending on what you're working on. Clustering is big because our data sets are so large, but again, we don't necessarily, we have our own infrastructure division that creates our own, I don't even know what the right external word to use is, but like our own forms of data storage that may not necessarily be what typical, external is offered. So, building like our version of clustering and stuff like that is important to happen on those type of data engines. So the nice thing is everything is very much really keen for people who like to innovate and invent. So when you start to think of things that you may see that works well, and you say, hey, that doesn't exist. They have this clustering and it's really clustering my, like phone numbers in such a way that's working because it doesn't really work in the UK or whatever. You just go and reinvent the clustering yourself. You can work with infrastructure or do it yourself to just reinvent whatever they had to make it work for your specific case. You're not tied to like getting a tool off the shelf because you're working with the smartest people in the world. So whatever you want to do, you can do. You just have to, think about it. and you can do it.
So is Meta, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I just threw up on the screen just kind of some of the teams that we're hiring for machine learning right now. I think that James said he's on the business integrity team. So I'm not going to read this up to you, but I mean, you can kind of see what the technologies are, what they're doing. So I just
And
let's do
I
that
used
up.
to be on business integrity. No,
Used to
now
be,
I'm in
that's right.
reality labs.
Now he's on
Yeah.
reality. My bad.
Just 3 weeks ago, though, so it's not that. Like maybe 4.
Yeah, I assume these are, I guess, maybe product teams. So if they're working through products and they probably support them, I guess, after they're kind of live. If
Correct.
So if someone was interested in moving into another team, is that kind of an easy process? Like if they've been on a product for
Yeah.
however long?
Yeah, I was in BI. I was in business integrity for 3 years, and I moved over to Reality Labs like about 4 weeks ago. It's not that big of a deal. It depends. There's a bunch of rules internally, based off of like what group you're moving to. Sometimes there's no interview required. Sometimes you have to interview internally. It just depends on what the group is and what the org is like. But it's very common for people to like be in a group, feel like you've determined everything that you could do and want to start something new, try something else. So like for me, shifting from business integrity over to Facebook Reality Labs to work on metaverse things, totally different things, but it's just something I wanted to do. And you can do that for any position. It doesn't matter what your area is.
I think you have to be in your current role for like 6 months or something like that, and then you can start looking elsewhere. One of the members of my team that was working as a recruiter for the last 3 years here at Meta, he just took a job as a business analyst. So totally different career path. So that is one of the things that is also kind of a benefit of working here, is that once you're in, you do have the opportunity to kind of move within teams, even if it is something completely different than what you've been doing.
I have a question. What sort of product methodologies or project methodologies do you use when you do machine learning? For example, like Agile, or how do you kind of work with your team?
Every team is different. Majority of people will do some form of Agile. Because you're kind of free to create your own stuff. You're not locked into like, okay, we're going to scrum every day. We have a meeting at 8 a.m. Everybody have your 5 minutes. Now we have to declare to all the wolves, like in the scrum method, what our things are. It's like you kind of do what you need to do to get the project done. And if Agile helps you do it, that's what you do. A lot of people tend to do Agile because you can move a lot faster, but then you could look at something that has like a longer tail that's not necessarily shipping like in a month, and they may have some form of waterfall or some form of like a look back schedule. Everywhere I've worked, it's been a hybrid. And there's multiple teams. Like I don't necessarily work on one thing. I work with probably like 5 or 6 things. I think my current project has about a couple hundred people. And then I manage it's about 22 different work streams of groups, and each one of those groups have their own methods within them. So it just depends on what you're delivering and what's best for the product to get it done. And that's a consensus that you kind of get together with your other team members, like a top that says this company is going to only do this. It's what do you think? You and your coworkers, what do you guys think you should do? Because it's like I said, everything's so bottom up here.
Makes sense. Thank you.
How can I get a copy of this article or this information right here?
Dane can get that to you. I think he's on.
Okay.
Yeah, I can send it to you.
Okay.
James,
I would just again just kind of leaving it up there for a little bit and kind of scrolling through. But we're currently hiring for over 80 different machine learning teams. I think this document might have 15 or 20 on it, but and again, I would just kind of give an example of the different problems that each team is trying to solve, and then some of the different technologies that are involved with that. So just to kind of give you guys an example.
Okay. And it looks like most of it is natural language processing versus
lot of
computer
NLP.
vision. Yeah.
Well, there
But
might be some.
I mean, I don't think that indicates the majority. Like, I've never worked with NLP people here. I've only worked with them when I was at other companies. So I think it just depends on what groups you pick.
Yeah, and again, this is just examples, Hodges. Just examples.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I thought I saw some CV in there somewhere, but yes, a lot of NLP.
James, did you see Chris's last question in the chat? Just about how many models are running at any given moment?
Oh, I mean, I know the ones I've worked on is a lot. So I think like hundreds of thousands might be a little low. But I don't know like the whole company, and I barely even knew like all the ones in my area. So yeah, it's a lot. It's probably more than you could count on any type of hands or feet or anything like a lot. Way more than 100 because I know 100 myself. And I haven't worked in other areas except for 2 areas. So, but I think it just shows like there's a lot of compute power behind all this stuff, and our infrastructure teams do like a really, really good job making sure that we have that compute power to be able to deliver what we need to deliver for our customers across the board.
Are most people in the ML teams, where did they start? Like were they an app dev person, or were they more data scientist, or what's like a common roadmap?
I've seen all the. I worked with one DS who was a PhD in mapping. Another one's a PhD in psychology. I've worked with ones who were former devs. Very few that were former devs though. But like a lot, but I've worked with a lot of them who are PhDs. A couple people came from education. They were professors at universities. I think the array of people is very different. Everybody's path's different. Like even if you look at my path on how I got here, like I went to college to be a history major. And I was just lucky that my mother in 3rd grade, she took me to, my sister had piano lessons and I didn't have a babysitter. So in 3rd grade, she took me to her computer classes because she was a programming teacher, computer programming for basic teacher. So I learned coding in 3rd grade. So like I learned by the time I was in high school, I probably knew 6 or 7 coding languages, but I wanted to do history. Like I wanted to do history, African-American history. So when I went to school, I went to University of Georgia my first year. I transferred to Howard, and I needed to get good grades because I wasn't doing the best in history. So I took all the coding classes and just got straight A's and then got scholarships. And I stuck with it. And then I got a job. But my path wasn't like I intended to do it. I just happened to be good at it. So I think everybody's path is different. I haven't seen a standard path for people. I've seen all types of majors. I've worked with so many different people from different backgrounds. A couple people from the military. A lot of people with masters. Like the majority of the people I work with have masters. I'm like one of the few people that I know, like I know myself, who does not have a master's in something that I work with. So. But the range of diversity of what their master's degrees on are different. And it also depends on like the years in which they were in school. Like when I was in school, there was no such thing as computer science degree. It was computer engineering or electrical engineering. So you look at like people from my era, they'll be EEs. I was actually a business major officially because I could take more history classes that way and not have to pack it with too much math. So it's like you have this diverse. When I was at Microsoft, I worked with a lot of people who were straight out of high school who would just code it really well. So I don't think there's a typical path for like these high tech companies, but that's my experience. They may have more experience with like working with more people.
I think one of my last hires, to come over to the ML engineer. He was an embedded engineer at Qualcomm, just very strong with C++. So, I mean, coding is going to be the foundation pretty much, at least for the machine learning team. Coding is going to be the foundation. And if you're a good coder, they're going to look at you. So like James said, a pretty varied background, but coding being probably the foundation or fundamental thing that they all share. I heard it once. I don't know, James can say if this is true, and I heard it just kind of like everybody at Meta codes. So except for the recruiters, because I don't code nothing unless you call making cocktails coding. But
And it's different. Every group's different. Depends on the products, right? Like I've met a totally different type of people over in Reality Labs, than I met in business integrity. So I think there's room. I think the big idea is there's room for everyone in what you do. Like I worked with a PM. She was a psychology major, and she was really great, so, and does not code. So I think, and a lot of times we do deal with people, right? All of our products deal with people and their behaviors and helping people to connect with their friends. So there's different paths to get to where you want to go. Coding, I don't think you necessarily have to know how to code. It does help when you interface with engineers to know when you can say, hey, that's not true. Let's do this faster or a different way. But, or if you are an engineer and you need to code, but I think that it's that just intelligence to be able to understand situations and to be able to analyze them critically, and situational awareness to be able to look at a system to understand how the system should function and how it should improve it or create it or invent it is like really important. There's a lot of different, I think Dane could probably speak more to like how we do it through like an interview process, but it's not necessarily just about coding all the time.
So as the workforce, Damien was talking about, like kind of a 50% of people would be remote, dispersed. With that workforce being more dispersed, are you seeing senior leadership also become more dispersed across the country and the world, or is the heartbeat still in the Bay Area, would you say, or your thoughts on that?
I think like COVID has changed things a lot.
Yeah.
And it depends on what group you're in, honestly. Like for my group, and I'm at my wife's desk because it's quieter in here for to talk to you guys, but at my desk, I have a bunch of Oculus goggles all around it. And you can imagine me like sitting at my desk with an Oculus goggle. It wouldn't be the best thing. So like me at home, I can kind of do that, right? So it's more convenient. I think there's always going to be a sense of like wanting people to get together in the office to get that collaborative effort and move fast on things. For us, also, there's a sense of wanting to be in office because we have really great food that's free. And so you will see people. So it's, so I think that it's just a matter of their own preference. But like in my new team, I don't know anybody who's like in the office that I directly work with. Like we'll go in every once in a while, but in my old team, there were a lot of people who did want to go into the office, but I think it's really your personal situation. I do think that, as we start to return to work, you'll see a lot more people want to go to the office. There'll be, as travel comes back, I used to travel a lot to Singapore, London. I was in California so much I had to pay taxes there. So you tend to travel to the offices to meet people. But I think, it's wherever you're effective. I think on the executive talks, a lot of times they're at home talking, but I think it may be a facilitation of COVID right now, more than anything else.
But John, that's a great question. I know one of our senior recruiting leaders is actually based out of New York, and she's going to be working remotely for the next year. And she says she wants to work remotely so that she can kind of gauge how is that experience for the employees. So I think that if the company as a whole is looking at, a 50% remote workforce, just just by pure numbers that a large number of those are going to be in leadership opportunities or roles. I mean, even if my manager is in Denver, so I don't know what you consider leadership, but
Yeah.
I think that, as you're continuing to hire more Indians, you're going to need more chiefs and, or whatever the analogy goes. But I mean, if you're hiring that number of people, it just from a numbers perspective, that a lot of those leadership folks are going to be remote as well.
Makes sense.
Mostly everything at Facebook or Meta is homegrown. Even our applicant tracking system, JV, is all homegrown. It's crazy. It's called Facebook recruiting.
Cool. Are you see these last couple questions in the chat?
Yeah, those are James' questions.
Yep.
Okay, let me scroll up. I thought James had me. All right, let me go up. Does James typically look? What does James typically look for when hiring for his team? So here I don't have any reports. I usually have reports at Amazon, but so far I've stayed away from having reports. But I do a lot of interviews of people for other teams. I think that the things I'm always looking for is, I think the key things are like critical thinkers, people who are able to look at a situation, ask the right questions, get to the heart of the matter, and develop a solution that really focuses on solving the problem and not creating more problems. And I look for people who are independent thinkers that are able to come up with solutions on their own, as well as collaboratively. So like they're able to take feedback and go back and forth. I look for, I think on the dev side, I haven't had to interview developers here yet, but like when I used to interview developers, and it's very similar across the boards of the companies I worked for, you're looking not just for people who are good coders, but people who code efficiently, people who code based off of specifications, not necessarily just coding to code, not just to show off like all the algorithms, but somebody who may take a route like, you can always look up like a lot of the questions people ask, like code A to I function or something like that. And then somebody might just start coding it right away, but instead of asking questions about the A to I function, even though they may know about it already. So you're looking for like those critical thinkers who can really explain what they're doing and why they're doing it. It's very similar to like when my daughter was taking computer science class, and I was like really trying to influence her to put comments in her code to tell the teacher what she's doing, and that's the same thing that we look for, because whatever you're writing as an inventor, as an engineer, somebody else is going to pick it up. You're not going to probably maintain that. You may move on to a new group, or you may hand it off to support or operations, but you need to have a way to, communicate with other people. So like that ability to do that is really, really important when we're looking for hiring. This is my opinion. This is not some standard statement. I'll let Dave give a real standard one.
But yeah, if you notice, James just says something twice in his little answer right there, where he mentioned asking questions before you start coding. I cannot stress that enough. Just interview prep tip from Dane to you. If you have a coding question, ask questions, because what are the parameters? We get so many people that fail their coding interviews, because they just start running with it, like James said. Oh, I know that, and they don't ask any type of qualifying questions, and they run off the rails. So one thing I would always say is, clarify, ask questions if you're in an interview, because that is super important. James actually mentioned it twice just now.
Yeah. The next question was, what's the best way to stay in touch with us? For me, you can add me on LinkedIn. I'm just James Baker. If you type in James Baker Meta, James Baker Howard, James Baker UGA, I don't know if I put UGA, maybe UGA. You type in James Baker Meta or Microsoft or Amazon, you'll see me. My picture is sitting there. I think my ID on LinkedIn is jbaker00. How's the best way to get in touch with you, Dan?
I dropped my email, so folks can shoot me their resumes and I'll take a look at it. Hodges especially. Okay. Chris, you've been asking some great questions. I'm not exactly sure what your background is, but if you're interested, shoot me a resume as well.
Next one is, it sounds like Meta uses mostly proprietary tools. Do you guys use any third-party platforms for IT, like Azure, GCP, AWS, Snowflake, et cetera? You'll learn it in boot camp. I don't know what I'm allowed to say or not say, but we
Well,
do have
I
our
told
own
them that pretty much
infrastructure.
all of our everything at Facebook, everything at Meta is homegrown. So
Yeah,
the short answer to the question is no.
But the nice thing is, going through boot camp, you learn all those systems. They teach you how to use them, interface with them. To be honest, the tools that we use are way better than anything I've used at any other company to access things. And I worked on both Azure and AWS. So like the tools we use to access it are incredible. Or even to build it, all the things we do, even the coding infrastructure. How do you remote ML and DL engineers connect with servers for AI work? Do some of them use their own systems? No, we have, like I was saying, the tools we use are incredible. I don't know what I'm allowed to comment on there, but they work really, really well. And they work better than anything. I mean, at every place I've worked remote, it's not a big deal because you're never got like the server in your office. Like our servers are, you could never have that at your house. I mean, you blow out the power grid. You got to be sitting next to a dam to run that.
Hey, what drove you to go from UGA to Howard?
This is
JB,
being recorded.
that
I
is
can't
like
say that.
such a funny question.
Huh?
Let's just say that at UGA, you see how this call is black JB white. That's how James was in his classes at UGA. Then he went to Howard.
But that's not the reason. I had 17 first cousins down there. A ton of us were at UGA at the same time. So I was surrounded by a lot of us because I have so many cousins who were there at the same time as me. So that wasn't the reason. I guess the politically correct reason would be, I didn't do so great at my grades at taking history classes. So I moved a little closer to home. I'm from Montclair, New Jersey, up north. So I went a little closer to home to Howard. Not necessarily for HBCU, but because I was closer to Jersey, and I wasn't doing so great in my academics down there, and so I moved a little closer. That's the right way to say it.
Okay, here's the left field question, because you have this in your background too. So I saw playing the piano,
no, that's my sister.
Oh, I thought you were taking piano lessons. I was just going to say,
no.
What are your thoughts about people in IT, like the correlation of, it seems to me like there's a lot of people that are very musical or accomplished musically that are also in IT.
If you even come to like our office here in Seattle, there's a whole music studio where you can go. And they have like a ton of instruments you can play at any time, a soundproof room, like with pianos, guitars, everything. A lot of people go in there and play those. In the cafeteria, there's a baby grand piano that people play. That's just, and we're in Seattle. We're not in the main headquarters. They got way more than that. So I think there's a strong correlation. There's tons of or I forget what you call them, basically groups, but I think you call them like, Yeah, I never knew that's what they were called. But those groups, there's tons
employee
of groups on different
group.
people. See, I'm not in HR. I don't know. But there's tons of groups like that where people get together. There's different bands. Every company I've been at, somebody's starting a band with other people to do things. So I think that there's a strong correlation. Me, I did not play the piano, and because I didn't, I had to go to the computer programming class with my mom. And that's why I learned.
Gotcha. All right, I'm hogging all the questions. I think Hodges was trying to ask you something, and I interrupted him. You're on mute.
I've already forgotten what the question was, but how do you like living in Seattle?
I love it. So I've been here for 25 years now. So I moved back in '97 to come here to work at Microsoft. And I like it. My kids grew up here, so they love it. It took me a good 10 years to switch from the New York Giants to the Seahawks as my football team. But now, like, I'm all in for the Seahawks, although this year,
Go
I don't
Niners.
know what's going to happen. Oh my gosh. but yeah, I don't know what's going to happen this year. But
I
I
hope
love
y'all
it
get
here.
Jimmy Garoppolo from us, and y'all can be terrible, and we can win a division. That's what's gonna happen.
But the weather's
I
really
still
nice.
rep
It's
for the
very
Bay
moderate.
Area.
Oh, and Damien, you said you're from the Bay Area, huh?
Yeah, I grew up in San Jose.
Oh, I grew up in Oakland.
Okay,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah.
I moved.
But yeah,
I moved to Atlanta the summer before my freshman year of high school, so it was 1990. So I've been here a long time. Falcons never gave me any reason to leave my 49ers, so.
ooh. So yeah, but
Hodges,
Seattle's really
are
nice.
you
It's a great city.
Raiders?
Raiders, wow.
Yeah.
You stick with them even though they went to Vegas?
And to LA.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one too. But yeah, Seattle's a great city. Like even for like technical opportunities, like across the street from us, there's a giant Apple office. 2 blocks down, there's a bunch of Google offices. That's Amazon right next to me outside the window. Facebook's 2 blocks that way.
Wow.
So it's it's a really good place. And then Microsoft's across the bridge to the main campus. So you interact with a lot of people. Now like huge amount of friends here too. So I like
Maybe
it.
Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
Is it definitely an area where like many people have moved there from all over the place? So it's kind of a melting pot a bit.
Yeah, you don't really meet. I'm trying to think of like I know very few Seattle natives.
Yeah.
But you know who I work with at least. But you know I know outside of that, my wife has some friends who are Seattle natives that we know families. But outside of
That's
that,
like Atlanta.
most people from
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Most people in Atlanta are from someplace else too. So
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough. Yeah. People like me that are Packers fans, I got to put up with San Francisco 49ers fans and then you Seattle Seahawks people. It's irritating.
you said it's irritating.
Well, thank you guys again so much for being with us. Shanika, I'll let you.
Hopefully it was informative to you guys.
Very
helpful.
Yeah, very
Very
helpful.
much so.
I had fun. James, I can't thank you enough, man, coming in at the last minute. I really appreciate you taking the time for sure. Thank you very, very much.
Anytime, Dave.
Yeah.
Now we best friends, right? So I'll hit you up on workplace chat.
anytime.
Yeah, thanks James, thanks Dave, and thanks John for bringing us together this evening. It was good. It was good fun and a lot of learning. And it's being recorded, so we'll be able to share it with people in the future as well. So yeah, thank you. Any last questions from anyone before we head off for the evening?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you guys for throwing this together because it's actually a good way for me to sort of interact with Facebook and try to get my foot somehow, not necessarily in the door, but Meta. I meant Meta. I'm sorry, Meta. Yeah.
Hey, Hodges, man, send me your resume, man. Send me your resume. We'll get up sometime this week.
Okay. Will do.
Contact email. Details are in the chat, so you can download that also, Hodges. And yeah, if you need anything, feel free to reach out to any of us. We'll forward you along.
Okay, thanks. And Damien, you're also on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. All right.
I don't remember what my LinkedIn is. It might be Dane Phillips or Damian Phillips. I don't remember.
Dane Phillips.
DAME Phillips, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well,
thanks everyone.
There you are.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Stay cool.
Yep. Stay cool. Mm-hmm.